Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time thanks to your generous support, shares and views, with multiple uploads every week to help share the rich history of monsters, locations and mythologies of D&D. Darkmantles are very interesting creatures. Some scholars believe they are closely related to piercers, the juvenile form of ropers, and all of them, along with a number of other unique creatures in the D&D multiverse, are land-based gastropods, somewhat similar to land-dwelling octopus. One other which I'm quite keen to bring to you is the decapod, which I'll bring to you later. The Darkmantle first appeared in the 3rd edition Monster Manual in 2000, along with a fantastic monster ecology article by Jonathan M. Richards in that same year, in Dragon Magazine issue 275, which was printed in September. 3 years later, the Darkmantle was included in the revised Monster Manual for 3.5 edition and has appeared in every core Monster Manual since then, so it's safe to say that this creature has proved very popular and is here to stay. Adult Darkmantles are about 4 feet long, have a leathery skin, not moist like a squid as one might expect. They're sticky on their foot underneath. They are tremendously strong for a relatively small creature with a strength of 16, requiring a difficulty class 13 strength check to get one off them once a character's grabbed by these things. There are some reports of much larger creatures. They are called envelopers and exist almost exclusively in the Shadowfell. They are large in size and much more formidable. I'll be talking about them more at the end of the video. All Darkmantles are hermaphrodites. Outside of the Shadowfell, they are found exclusively underground, very well adapted to living in the zone called the upper underdark, and even venturing out a short distance from the cave mouth to hunt on the surface at night time, occasionally. Although the light of day causes them no harm at all, they just really don't like it and tend to retreat from anything of daylight brightness. So life begins for the Darkmantle when 2 of them cross-fertilize each other and go their separate ways to lay a clutch of 6 to 8 eggs in some secluded spot, such as a crevasse or inside the old shell of a piercer, for instance. The parent then abandons them completely. The eggs are about the same size as those of a chicken, but with a soft greyish shell that allows it to blend in with the stone. 2 weeks later, the eggs begin to hatch and the grubs immediately depart in random directions, looking exactly like large slugs. They are distinctive from common slugs in that they have 8 eye spots, quite characteristic, 3 on each side and 2 towards the front. Otherwise they are soft and slimy with mucus and leave slime trails as they move around, just like a slug or a snail would. They have a rasping mouth parts that gnaw plants, moss, lichen, fungus and algae off the surface of the rock, so they start off life as herbivores, rasping away with a toothed tongue-like organ called a radula. Internally, they also absorb the minerals they ingest with an organ they called a statocyst, being like a liquid-filled bag with minute grains of salt-like mineral inside, or sand-like mineral inside, that acts like an inner ear balance mechanism in humans. Grubs have echolocation just as effective as their adult form and can sense what is going on out to 60 feet, with a superb sense of hearing. That also means that, in cases of many creatures of the Underdark, casting a silence spell will effectively blind their blindsight ability. It certainly does for the Darkmantle. The olfactory senses of taste and smell are located in the radula, which within the first month of the grub's life will split and split again, dividing into wriggling toothed proto-tentacles around the lamprey-like mouth. At this age, the grub will be about a foot long and about as wide as a human wrist. Still moving along on its slimy foot like any other slug, it starts to exude the minerals that it's been absorbing into its body into a shell that grows along its back. The eye spots are not very good and never develop overly much during the Darkmantle's life. They allow it to detect light or darkness, not any sort of details. It relies almost entirely on its blind sight, echolocation, and sense of smell and taste to get around in the total darkness below the ground. As the grub grows, it spends a lot of time clinging to the ceiling with its muscular foot, which provides it an excellent and energy-saving grip. Where it hangs, vital organs protected and concealed under its rocky shell. The tentacles, which are now much longer, hanging down and tasting the air, look very much like the stalactites that it rests among. Like the octopus, squid or nautilus, it has pigment and texture changing properties to its skin that allows it to become indistinguishable from the surrounding rock unless it moves. At this stage, the eye spots are spaced evenly around the body and it started to develop more deadly appetites. Resting perfectly at ease above the cavern floor, the Darkmantle waits for prey to venture into its environment. With its inaudible echolocation, the Darkmantle reacts as soon as prey appears, dropping from the ceiling and spreading its fully formed tentacles wide. They have a tough membrane between them that serves a double purpose. While landing on top of prey, particularly small prey, they enclose and then smother the victim as the tentacles and teeth latch on it and constrict with serious force. This screen means that the footprint of their strike is much wider and therefore doesn't need to be pinpoint accurate. So they're very good at taking out beetles and spiders, centipedes and stuff, even fast-paced rats and mice, and some have been reported taking out bats in flight mid-wing. The membranes have part on either side of the Darkmantle's body, which enables them to flap them and angle them to glide and fly. Though they are in no way agile or long-distance flyers and absolutely cannot carry off their prey, they can manage to get from the floor and back up to the ceiling fairly well, and obviously survive any slips and falls down crags, cliffs and crevasses. Normally, when not slithering on their muscular foot up walls and along ceilings at a speed of 5 feet per round, they simply get up on the tips of their 8 tentacles and scuttle around, using them exactly like legs, which gives them a speed on the ground of 10 feet per round. When they're doing that or dropping down tentacles wide, their similarity to an octopus is much more apparent. Darkmantles are not the toughest creatures in the Underdark. They have an armor class of 11 and between 10 and 35 hit points with an average of 22 for an adult in reasonable health. The primary attack of the Darkmantle is its crushing grip. They're often described as dropping down on a target to use this attack. However, they are easily strong enough to use their 8 tentacles to slam the ground and leap onto the target from the ground or rebound off a wall. The crushing attack is plus 5 to hit and does 1d6 plus 3 bludgeoning damage, and the Darkmantle attaches to the target painfully. Don't forget, those tentacles are covered with sharp little fangs. So they're quite fast, they've got a high metabolism, they're quite agile. I would say it is quite possible for a Darkmantle to make a slashing attack with them, essentially slapping with those barbed tentacles like a cat o' nine tails whip. If the target is medium or smaller and the Darkmantle has advantage on the attack roll, it attaches by engulfing the target's head, and the target is also blinded and unable to breathe while the Darkmantle is attached in this way. While attached to the target, the Darkmantle can attack no other creature except the target and has advantage on its attack rolls. The Darkmantle's speed also becomes 0. It can't benefit of any bonus to its speed, and it moves with the target. So it's crushing them, and it's also probably giving them a nibble with its lamprey-like mouth. And the second and I think more important ability of the Darkmantle is its ability to release a magical ink cloud in the form of a 15-foot magical darkness aura which moves with the Darkmantle and lasts until either Darkmantle loses concentration or at the end of 10 minutes. This darkness is also effective against dark vision and will dispel magical light if it overlaps the effect and if the light spell is lower than level 2. Of course, no natural light can penetrate it either, but as long as it is not deafened, the Darkmantle suffers no penalties in this darkness at all. This can be created once per day, and aside from the reduced range, is exactly the same as the second level darkness spell. Clearly, this works very well in conjunction with the Darkmantle's method of attack, as creatures unable to see suffer from the blinded condition, where attack rolls against the creature have advantage, and the creature's attack rolls have disadvantage. Also, a blinded creature can't see and automatically fails any ability check that requires sight. Plus, they can't make an opportunity attack against the Darkmantle, as they cannot see it move in and out of melee range from them. I find the best use of Darkmantles is when they are encountered unexpectedly. Most monsters are best encountered unexpectedly. Much like I enjoy giving plenty of weird descriptions of what it's like to encounter a roper before you realise what is going on. And I've fooled so many adventurers with that. So many crafty and well-experienced players. The sudden and silent attack of the Darkmantle can throw a serious spanner in the works. For example, if the characters have been making a fair amount of noise and gotten into some fights in some caverns, they are most likely to have drawn in some hungry Darkmantles who have extremely sensitive hearing, who will set up and wait for the adventurers to appear in their chosen ambush spot. If the adventurers are in a fight with some lowly creatures and those creatures take off suddenly, they might give chase, or, facing some serious threat, they may even go running off themselves, right into the embrace of some Darkmantles who drop down out of nowhere, who not only stop them in their tracks but also create supernatural darkness over completely unknown terrain. Darkmantles are not very intelligent creatures, When well fed, they can actually be kept as pets. They do have some clever tricks though. They play with their darkness abilities, such as switching it on and letting player characters fall into pit traps, run into spiked walls, trip over wire, or tumble directly into pools of quicksand. All which plays to the Darkmantle's advantage in keeping them controlled and easier to kill. For the players at the table who know that their prey is getting away or much more serious threat is right behind them, this can cause their focus on the game to skyrocket as the tension suddenly mounts. They may even make some irrational mistakes, such as wasting some very powerful spells just to end the encounter as quickly as possible. Darkmantles might even set up an ambush right by a sleeping rust monster, or slow-moving slime or ooze, such as a large and docile gelatinous cube. When the character who runs into the cube is nicely dead from the acid burns, the Darkmantle is strong enough to actually pull their body back out of the cube and gnaw away at it for a while. They can't actually make any vocal sound, such as a satisfied mumbling as they chew away at a body. They are not equipped with to make even so much as a hiss. But if a character is perceptive enough, they may hear a soft pop the moment before the Darkmantle lands on their head as the membrane wings catch the air as it falls. Darkmantles are abundant in the bordering parallel dimension called the Shadowfell. There they employ exactly the same tactics and life cycle. However, something about the plain supernatural shadows seems to increase the vitality and potential size of the Darkmantles, and one can encounter a much more fearsome version. It's thought that the Darkmantles are actually originally creatures from the Shadowfell, and that is actually their natural environment, or some other plane very similar to it, and they just spread throughout the multiverse via the Shadowfell from wherever they originally came from, since they can live and exist so easily in the Shadowfell. Darkmantles from the Shadowfell may be used by the Shadowkai elves as guard animals, as these Darkmantles have an intelligence of 3, which is the equivalent of a dog. Also, they, like their prime material worldly relatives, tend to travel in packs or swarms of variable numbers. It really depends on the conditions and available prey for them, and of course the level of the player characters that you're setting this encounter up for. The Shadowfell adults grow to large size and frequently spend months at a time in hibernation, just hanging from the ceiling. When they are awake and active, they can go for a week between meals, but they can and do starve to death, particularly in the Shadowfell, which is devoid of the abundant life of the Prime Worlds. Envelopers have an armor class of around 14, 3 times as many hit points. They are capable of short-range teleportation from shadow to shadow, and can release a powerful shriek using the organs they use for echolocation, doing a blast of thunder damage all around them and actually stunning their prey. They are ferociously strong, but have a vulnerability to light and radiant damage. They can not only engulf but also make more frequent use of their tentacles as a slashing weapon, and have twice the flight speed of their lesser kin. Dwaga often use them, these creatures, they bring them over from the Shadowfell into the deeper depths of the Underdark, where you'll quite often encounter these much more tough envelopers, and use them much like the Shadowkai do as attack monsters and guard dogs. Darkmantles normally reach a length of 4 feet, as I mentioned, and weigh around 30 pounds or 10 kilograms. I'm not sure the full size of the large enveloper, or if they live longer than the normal Darkmantles, which can survive up to 6 years in ideal conditions before they grow their shell into adult form. They have no bones and can squeeze through spaces as narrow as an inch in diameter to get at hard-to-reach deposits of food or hide from predators as grubs. Subscribe, check out my Patreon for some exclusive content and a good place where I can answer all of your questions. And all of the full scripts for these videos are hosted there. Buy some merchandise, wear your geek with pride. Check out Patron Blades for a mighty smooth shave. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon. Also, if you've got any suggestions for particular types of artwork and things that you'd like to wear on merchandise, please let me know in the comment section down below.